All right, so now I want to talk about how to process array contents. And we've already been looking at this a little bit, but I just want to formalize some things by going through them. So process array contents. Okay, so we've already seen that if we have an individual array element, like let's say we have an array, and so these are our array elements, and let's say that we have these values stored to this array. So each one of these array elements can be treated like any other variable. So the array elements can be treated like any other variable. And we've already seen this a little bit with the cipher code. We were treating each array element as an individual variable when we were doing this, when we were encrypting the password and decrypting the password. And so let's just look at an example. Let's say that the name of this array is hours. And this has 1, 2, 3. So this has 4 elements, and these are integers. So let's say that this array is int hours, and actually this has 5 elements. And we want to calculate pay, so let's say these are hours someone's working. So what we could do is we could say pay is equal to hours, and let's say we just want to look at the first element, so hours, and then multiply this by the pay rate. So what we're doing is we're treating this array element like we would any other variable. Like we can treat these like any other variable. We can do math with them. We can read values in and store them to them. We can print them out. So we can treat them like any other variable. So that's really useful and convenient. We can also do this. So let's say that we have, let's say that we want to add 1 to this first element. So we have 21, we have 20 stored there. Let's say we want it to be 21. So we can do this amount 0 plus plus. And let's make this a little more generic. So let's say amount, and let's just say that this is a counter in here. So we have a counter, and maybe it's currently at 0. And we can do plus plus. So what this is going to do is it's going to, so let's say that count is 0. If count is 0, it's going to look like this. So amount is 20. So we're going to have 20 plus plus, which is 21. So this is going to replace the first element in this array with 21. So we can do operations like this, but you want to be careful because you could also do this. So count plus plus. So the difference between these, what this one is going to do is it's going to add 1 to your index or counter variable. So let's say that this is currently equal to 0. If we do count plus plus, now this is going to be amount 1. So with this one we're incrementing the counter variable. So this one is incrementing counter variable. And this one is incrementing the value that's stored in the array. So this one is incrementing the value stored in the element. So make sure to be careful with these. These are pretty easy to get confused, so you want to be careful with those. All right, Now let's say that we want to copy one array to another array. So let's say that we have an array called test6, and let's say it has 6 elements. And let's just initialize some values to this array. So we have 90, 90, 80, 90, 80, 70. So we've initialized this array to these values. And let's say that we have another array, and this is going to be an integer array. Let's say we have another array, int new tests. This one's also 6. So let's say that we want to copy the values in tests to new tests. So the way we're going to do that is we need to assign the values element by element. So we need to assign the values element by element. So the way we'll do that is with a for loop. So we have for, and let's just say int, I'll call this count, int count is equal to 0. Count less than, we have 6 elements in our array, and then count plus plus. So what we do is we say new tests. So this is going to, well, let's just write this out first. So new tests count equals tests count. So what this is doing, let's draw. So this let's say this array is tests. So and this only has 6 elements, but 90, 90, 80, 90, 80, 70. And then we have our second array, which is new tests. Try and line these up somewhat. So this one is new tests. So what this array is doing, or what this for loop is doing, is so we start out at 0, so that's here, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we start out at 0, and we basically go to, so we have tests 0, so that's here, and we say new tests 0, so that's here, is equal to 90. So what this is going to do is store 90 to the first element in new tests. Then we increment the loop. Now count is equal to 1. So what we're going to do is, so now this test count, this is test count is equal to 1. We have 90 stored in 1, so this is going to store 90 to new tests. So this is going to increment through this entire array and store all of the values that we have stored in tests to the same elements in new tests. So the question is, why can't we just say new tests equals test? Like, why can't we do that? The reason why we can't do that is because the name of the array is actually the memory address or the memory location of the first element of the array. So what we're doing if we do this, so if we say new test is equal to test, what we're doing is we're saying the beginning memory address of new test is equal to the beginning memory address of tests. So we can't assign a memory address to another memory address. So for instance, what I mean by this is let's say this is our memory locations. So we have all of these memory locations. And let's say that, and let's draw some more memory locations down here. So these are all memory locations, and these are going to be in memory something like 24x0, maybe 25XO, 26. This isn't really what they're going to be, but let's just assume. And then maybe down here, this is 50XO, 51XO. So let's say that when we declare the array test, it assigns this memory location here to be the first element of this array. So this is the first element of test. So it's test 0. This is going to be test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, test 5. And so this is going to be how our array is stored in memory. So the name test is, like if we were to just print out the name, like cout test, what we would get is this memory location. So this is going to print out the memory location to the screen. It's not going to print out the first element. It's going to print out the memory location of the first element. So now let's say that we have new test, and let's say new test, its first element is here. So this is 0, and I'm going to just write this here. So this is new test, and this is the first element, or first, second, third. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is new test. Well, if we say, so new test, if we cout just the name new test, this is going to print this memory location to the screen. So the names of the arrays represent the memory location of the first element of the array. They don't represent what's stored in the array. So the reason why you can't just say new test is equal to test is because you're saying by doing that, you're saying that you want this memory location to be equal to this memory location, and you can't do that. So we can't assign one memory location to another memory location. So this isn't going to work. So if you want to assign one array to another array, you need to do it element by element. You can't just assign, you can't do it like this.